The heat from the RE sky panels pressed against the back of my neck while the client counted down the minutes behind Video Village. Our male lead had tested positive for flu before lunch. We still had a $200,000 coffee machine campaign, a rented kitchen set, a crew on overtime, and no husband for the final lifestyle shot. Liam Carter, my line producer, looked at my navy shirt, then at the wardrobe reference. Close enough. I was hoping you'd say no. I protect schedules, not dignity. Across the set, Chloe Bennett adjusted a bowl of prop oranges and laughed. Try to look married, Ethan, not audited. That broke the tension just enough. I handed off the follow focus and stepped into the bright fake kitchen. Emma Collins waited at the island in the pale floral dress wardrobe had chosen for the campaign. A ceramic mug rested between her hands. She had spent the morning hitting marks perfectly while the crew unraveled around her, and even now, with everyone watching us. She looked calm. Richard, the agency representative, stood beside the monitor with a clipboard pressed to his chest. Warm, dependable, aspirational, he called. 3 things no real marriage has ever achieved before breakfast, Chloe muttered. Emma heard her and fought a smile. Sound? Speed. Camera? Rolling? I leaned against the faux marble counter. Emma turned toward me. The script asked for a 5-second glance between a married couple over morning coffee. Nothing more. But when her eyes met mine, the set seemed to quiet. The light hummed overhead. Someone shifted a sandbag. Her mug touched the counter with a soft click. She smiled like we had a private history no camera could see. For 1 second, I forgot the shot list. And cut. The room rushed back to life. Crew crossed between us with cables and bounce boards. Makeup moved in. Liam called for the product insert. I stepped away. Emma caught my sleeve with 2 fingers. What about our unscripted scene? She whispered. I stopped. Her expression had changed. No commercial warmth now. Just focus. I have a documentary, she said. The research is done far enough to shoot. I have access, preliminary funding, and a former city planner willing to go on record. That sounds less like a scene and more like a lawsuit. It might become both. She glanced toward Richard. My agency contract expires in 26 days. There's a rolling promotional clause they can trigger before then. Richard wants me back under an exclusive roster. If they enforce it, they can challenge outside on-camera work while this campaign is active. There it was. Leaving the agency would not erase the contract she had already signed. Hiring a lawyer would not stop the agency from asserting rights while a dispute crawled through review. And her first documentary interviews were scheduled for the following month, when several residents were moving away. A delay could kill the film without anyone ever winning a case. I need someone who understands what production records matter before lawyers start arguing about what happened, she said. That was my lane. Usage terms, delivery schedules, releases, union paperwork, media buys, clients who remembered contracts differently when money got large. If Richard turned this campaign into a dispute involving my production, I could end up dragged into document requests and delivery questions whether I wanted to or not. That was my practical reason to help. The second reason was harder to admit. I hated watching vague power pretend to be certainty. What exactly did you sign? A representation agreement and campaign addenda? Standard? That's what they called it. Standard, according to the person benefiting from it, usually means read every page. A small smile returned. Now you sound interested. I sound cautious. Richard appeared before she could answer. Excellent chemistry, he said. The client loves it. His eyes shifted to Emma. And before you make any outside commitments, remember the performance-based promotional provisions in your paperwork. We'll need to discuss your availability. I looked at him. Performance-based? Routine language. Then send the complete writer to Talent Council. His smile stayed in place half a second too long. I'm sure everything is in order? Good, I said. Then clarity should be easy. He walked away. Liam came up beside me with his tablet. Agency asked for an extra vertical social cut this morning, not in the original delivery list. Paid placement? They didn't say. They did ask us to add tracking labels. Not proof, but a clue. I turned to Emma. Send me the treatment, your contract in every addendum you have. You're in? I'm reviewing exposure. That isn't what I asked. No, but it's what you get until I know what I'm stepping into. She lifted the ceramic mug as the camera reset. Careful, Ethan, that almost sounded like a yes. By 9 that night, her files were in my inbox. I stayed alone in my production office, desk lamp on, the rest of the room dark. Camera notes sat on the left side of my desk. Contracts sat on the right. Cold coffee occupied the neutral zone. Emma's treatment was first. The documentary followed families pushed out of aging apartment buildings after a developer bought the properties through shell companies, raised fees, delayed repairs, and cleared tenants before redevelopment. Emma had spent nearly a year collecting records and earning access from people who had stopped trusting reporters. This was not a vanity project. She had built something dangerous enough to matter. Then I opened her contract. Exclusivity windows, usage territories, option periods. Near the end, one paragraph referenced a performance-based promotional extension in a separate rider. The rider was missing. I called Emma. Tell me you found something good, she answered. I found something absent. A pause. The agreement references a rider. Do you have it? I sent everything in my folder. Search old email, campaign name plus rider. Keys clicked through the phone. Found the email, she said. The attachment link expired. Forward it. You think that helps? It proves the document existed. Tomorrow you meet Sarah Kim. Who? My production attorney. You're bringing in a lawyer already? I'm bringing in the person qualified to tell us what the words mean. I'll tell her what the production records mean. Emma went quiet. Then, thank you. I looked at the cold coffee. Don't thank me yet. I still haven't agreed to direct. You read 50 pages after wrap. That proves I make poor evening choices. Her laugh came softly through the speaker. For the first time that night, the office felt less empty. Sarah met us the next afternoon in a glass conference room above a post house. She read the documents, capped her pen, and looked at Emma. No magic loopholes. Emma nodded. The agreement appears to allow limited non-commercial journalistic work, Sarah continued, but the language is narrow. We have an argument. We do not have immunity. What does Richard actually have? Emma asked. Timing. If the agency validly triggers the promotional extension, they can claim your on-camera documentary work conflicts with an active exclusivity period. We can dispute that, but disputes take time. And time is exactly what she doesn't have, I said. Sarah pointed at me. Constraint 1. Then she turned back to Emma. Constraint 2 is likeness usage. Leaving the agency does not erase rights already granted to the coffee campaign. Emma folded her hands. So I can leave the agency, but I can't leave the contract behind. Correct. What do I do? Preserve every record, obtain the missing rider, document every campaign use, and until we know more, keep the documentary moving without putting yourself on camera. Emma glanced at me. Can we do that? I reached for the production calendar, then stopped. Instead of answering, I slid it across to her. She studied it. If you'll direct, I uncapped my pen. Then we start with what we can control. By the end of the first week, the commercial had wrapped and the documentary had a temporary office downtown. Chloe volunteered 2 evenings a week to help Emma turn a corkboard wall into a working map of shell companies, tenants, interviews, and property transfers. Emma used yellow tabs. I used blue. Chloe held up pink ones. These are for people who need hobbies. Emma smiled. I kept pinning. The next morning, Liam arrived with 2 coffees and a laptop. I checked the delivery schedule, he said. That extra vertical cut still isn't listed. Did we deliver it? A watermarked review file, internal testing only, time-limited link. Keep the email. I keep everything. That's why I tolerate you. He put a coffee beside me. That and my personality? Emma looked up from a property map. You have one. Liam pointed at her. She stays. It was the first morning the room sounded like somewhere people wanted to be. The second week began at a diner 3 blocks away. Emma and I had fallen into a 7 rhythm. Same booth, same call sheet between us, coffee strong enough to remove paint. Then her phone buzzed beside the sugar dispenser. She read the message. The warmth disappeared from her face. Richard, I set down my pen. The agency had attached a draft 5-year exclusive commercial agreement. Emma scrolled. They widened the likeness clause? Send it to Sarah. Already did. Outside the window, a delivery truck hissed to a stop. Emma stared at the screen for another second, then reached for the call sheet. We still have the housing inspector at 10? Yes. And archives at 1? Yes. Then Richard gets whatever hour Sarah tells me to give him. The decision was hers. A server brought our plates. Emma looked at the thick binder beside me. Do you bring contracts to meals often? Only romantic occasions. Her fork froze. I heard myself 1 second too late. Her eyes lifted. Good to know your standards are reachable. I looked down at my coffee. The mug had suddenly become fascinating. 2 days later, Richard pushed the 5-year contract across an agency conference table. The campaign is testing exceptionally well, he said. This gives you guaranteed income and premium placement. Emma did not touch the signature tab. I told you I'm moving into independent production. And we support that. We simply need to protect your commercial value. Sarah's voice came through the video screen. Then keep the restrictions commercial. Richard's jaw tightened. Emma turned to the likeness section. This language covers editorial appearances. It covers brand conflicts. It says all audiovisual media. A standard precaution. Emma underlined the phrase. Then narrow it. Richard looked at me. Ethan, you understand why a client paying this much expects continuity? I understand the original delivery obligations. Exactly. I also understand the difference between an original obligation and a new 5-year contract. The room went quiet. I pushed the paper back toward Emma. Her call. She closed it. I'll complete what I already signed. I won't sign this. Richard's expression hardened. There may be consequences under the current promotional provisions. Sarah answered calmly. Send the complete rider and your formal position in writing. Outside the building, Emma stopped at the curb. You didn't argue for me. You had your own argument. That's not what I meant. I waited. You didn't take the room away from me. A bus passed, rattling the metal sign behind us. It was your contract. Her eyes stayed on mine. Then her phone buzzed. Chloe says the research wall collapsed. That sounds dramatic. She says your blue tabs caused it. Defamation. Emma laughed. The sound followed us half a block. Relief did not have to be profound. Sometimes it was a fallen corkboard and someone beside you who understood why it was funny. That Thursday, the air conditioning died in the studio. Within an hour, the room was miserable. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor surrounded by property records, rubbing her temple as she tried to match 2 shell company transfers. I put down the lens I was testing. An industrial fan from my grip truck sat in the corner. I carried it over, aimed it toward her, plugged it in, and taped the cable flat to the floor. The blade spun up with a low mechanical rush. Emma closed her eyes for half a second. You travel with emergency climate equipment? I travel with equipment. She looked at the tape. And workplace safety? Trip hazards ruin schedules. She grabbed a marker, wrote on a scrap of label paper, and stuck it to the fan. Ethan's emergency weather department. I stared at it. That reduces resale value. Then you'll have to keep it. She returned to the records. A few minutes later, she began explaining a deed transfer. My phone buzzed. I looked at the notification, then turned it face down. The fan pushed warm, paper-scented air across the room while she talked. If the transfer happened in 2021, I said, we need the county valuation before and after the sale. I can request it tonight. I'll ask Liam to move the city planner interview forward. She nodded. No speech. No promise. Just the next step. By the third week, the coffee ad premiered online. Liam called my name from across the studio. His tone got me moving before he said anything else. The campaign was open on his laptop. The view counter was climbing. A lifestyle account had clipped the exact moment Emma and I looked at each other over the kitchen island. The clip spread until strangers were using it as a joke about couples who still liked each other before caffeine. 2 million views became 3. Emma walked in carrying release forms. What happened? Liam turned the screen. She watched once. That's strange. The meme? The tag. A paid partnership label sat beneath the repost. Liam opened the brand account. They're boosting it? A cold line formed in my stomach. Do we have paid social approval paperwork? Not from production. Emma put the releases down. What about the missing writer? Sarah had obtained it that morning through counsel. I opened the file. The language was clear enough to make the room feel smaller. If the campaign exceeded a defined engagement threshold during the original term, the agency could request a 90-day promotional exclusivity extension, provided campaign usage remained compliant with the underlying agreement and union obligations. Richard had mentioned performance provisions on set. Liam had seen the unexplained tracking request. Now the clues connected. Emma read the threshold. We crossed it. Yes. So they can extend me. They can request enforcement. Sarah decides whether the conditions hold. Her phone rang. Richard. She put it on speaker. Emma, I assume you've seen the numbers. Congratulations. What do you want? The performance writer has been activated. We expect you to suspend outside on-camera work while we finalize your retention agreement. Emma's fingers pressed into the table edge. You'll send that in writing. A pause. Of course. And all campaign usage reports. Another pause. That may take time. Then take the time. She ended the call. The fan turned in the corner. Her first on-camera documentary introduction was 8 days away. 2 residents were scheduled to relocate soon after. If they enforce this now, I miss them. I moved the calendar across the table and placed my pen beside it. We can keep shooting B-rolled records, locations, and interviews that don't require you on camera. She looked at me. You think we should? I think you should decide. Silence. Then she picked up the pen and circled 3 shoot days. We keep moving? I nodded. Then we keep moving. That night, Chloe arrived with takeout noodles and replacement corkboard. No one mentioned contracts for 20 minutes. Liam complained the noodles were too spicy. Chloe accused him of having the palate of a suburban toddler. Emma laughed hard enough to cover her mouth. Then Sarah called. The extension is not automatically invalid, she said. But the agency may have a problem. The paid boost? Liam asked. Possibly. We need evidence of who authorized it, when, and whether required usage and union upgrades were completed. If non-compliant paid amplification helped create the threshold, we have grounds to dispute enforcement. Emma asked, Can we stop them tomorrow? No, I can file a formal notice tomorrow, request union review, and demand preservation of records. That creates a process. It doesn't guarantee the outcome. How long? Days if they want settlement, weeks if they fight. Emma looked at the circled dates. Then we work behind the camera until we know. For the next 2 weeks, we reduced fear into things that could be proved. Emma and Chloe handled source preparation and access. I shot building exteriors, repair notices, leaking basement pipes, city streets before sunrise, and the hands of residents sorting years of rent receipts across kitchen tables. Liam traced the commercial delivery chain. He found the original review link for the vertical cut, watermarked, internal review only. He found the agency email requesting tracking labels, then the later clean brand post with no corresponding paid media instruction in our records. That doesn't prove they skipped the paperwork, he said. No, it proves we never received it. Sarah would decide what that meant. Then Chloe brought us the piece none of us expected from her. She had kept the final continuity packet because the coffee client had requested exact prop and wardrobe references for possible pickups. Inside was a signed agency sheet listing approved deliverables, broadcast, pre-roll, organic social, no paid amplification. Chloe dropped it on the table. I knew hoarding paperwork would make me powerful eventually. Emma flipped through the pages. You kept all this? I keep receipts when people with clipboards say something is just a formality. I looked at her. That may be the smartest sentence spoken in this building. Put it on my invoice. Sarah filed the dispute, requested union review, and sent preservation notices to the agency and media buyer. Then came the worst part, waiting. One afternoon, I found Emma alone in the studio, standing beside the empty chair prepared for her first on-camera introduction. The key light was off, only the desk lamp near the research wall glowed. She ran her thumb along a cue card. I spent 10 years letting people tell me what my face was worth, she said. I thought leaving the agency would be the hard part. I didn't think a coffee ad could follow me into this room. I did not tell her everything would be fine. I moved the chair aside, clearing a path to the door, then placed the revised off-camera schedule on the seat. Tenant board meeting tomorrow? No need for you in frame. Sarah's review call is at 4. Liam has the usage log. Chloe confirmed location access. Emma looked at the page. Paper whispered beneath her fingers. You always answer fear with a call sheet? Only when the call sheet can do something? A small smile appeared. Good. She picked it up. Then tomorrow we work. I watched her return to the research wall. For years, I had treated control like a wall. If every variable stayed on my side, nothing could surprise me. Emma did not make the world safer. She made uncertainty feel worth entering. At the end of the 5th week, Sarah called us into her office. The union had opened formal review. The agency's outside counsel had produced social usage paperwork. There was no dramatic smoking gun. There was something better. A documented chain. Paid amplification had begun before a required upgrade was fully executed. Those early paid engagement numbers had been counted toward the threshold. The rider tied extension eligibility to compliant campaign usage. Sarah folded her hands. We have a strong argument that the threshold calculation is disputed. That does not mean a judge has declared anything void. It means the agency now has to decide whether it wants to defend an aggressive interpretation while explaining its own timing problem to the union and the client. Emma asked, what happens next? They want an executive meeting next week. Boardroom? Senior partners, chief legal officer, Richard, us. Liam leaned back. The fun room. Sarah ignored him. Emma speaks for herself. I handle contract interpretation. Ethan and Liam answer production facts only. Chloe's packet supports the record. What do we ask for? I said. Sarah looked at Emma. Emma stared at the documentary schedule. Then she lifted her eyes. Written confirmation the documentary is outside commercial exclusivity. Withdrawal of the disputed extension, and I finished the original coffee obligations without granting new rights. Sarah gave one short nod. Good, that's a position. The 6th week began in the agency's main boardroom. The table was long enough to make everyone look farther apart than they were. Richard sat beside the chief legal officer and 2 senior partners. Sarah sat beside Emma. Liam and I were 1 seat down. Before we left the studio, Chloe had tucked a note into the continuity packet. Do not let the clipboard people win. I folded it into my pocket. Richard opened first. The campaign has exceeded expectations. We believe the extension was properly triggered and a temporary pause in misses. Collins's outside on-camera work remains reasonable. Emma looked at Sarah. Sarah gave the smallest nod. Emma placed both hands on the table. I'm not agreeing to a pause. Richard exhaled. Emma, no one is trying to stop your career. She pushed the writer toward the chief legal officer. Then stop using a disputed commercial extension to control work that isn't a brand endorsement. Richard opened his mouth. Let her finish, I said. I did not raise my voice. The chief legal officer looked at Richard. Richard leaned back. Emma continued. My documentary was disclosed before this dispute escalated. I'm completing every obligation I signed. Your own records show paid amplification began before the required upgrade was fully executed, and those numbers were counted toward the threshold you now rely on. Sarah took over. We are not asking anyone to pretend the contract never existed. We are saying enforcement is disputed, union review is active, and threatening unrelated journalistic work creates unnecessary exposure. The chief legal officer opened Liam's delivery log. Mr. Carter, the vertical review file was watermarked? Yes. Delivered for internal testing? That is what the request said. Were you instructed to prepare a paid media master? No. He turned to me. Mr. Cole? Same answer. Then he opened Chloe's packet. The approved deliverables sheet sat on top. One senior partner looked at Richard. Why isn't paid amplification listed? Richard glanced toward legal. The chief legal officer did not rescue him. We'll need to review approval timing. Emma reached into her folder. I also brought my notice of non-renewal. She set it on the table. I will complete the original campaign term. I will not sign the 5-year agreement. I want a written side letter confirming my documentary is outside commercial exclusivity and that the disputed 90-day extension will not be enforced. Silence. The air system hummed. Sarah's pen scratched against her legal pad. The chief legal officer whispered with the senior partners. Finally, he looked at Emma. If union review closes without additional claims, we are prepared to withdraw enforcement of the extension and issue a side letter confirming the documentary carve-out. Original campaign obligations remain unchanged. Sarah asked, Drafted today? Yes. Emma did not smile. Send it to Sarah. Richard leaned forward. This is unnecessarily adversarial. Emma turned to him. No, this is specific. That ended it. We did not celebrate in the elevator. Not yet. 4 hours later, the signed side letter arrived. The agency formally withdrew its extension position, and the union confirmed the usage issue could be resolved through the required upgrade payment without restricting Emma's documentary. Liam printed the email and held it over his head. I would like everyone to appreciate that bureaucracy has briefly produced joy. Chloe took the paper. You're holding it upside down. It's symbolic. Emma stood beside the research wall with both hands over her face. Then she lowered them and walked to the industrial fan. She peeled off the label and wrote a new one. Ethan's Emergency Weather and Contract Department. I stared at it. That is not an improvement. It is more accurate. You're damaging company property. You're welcome. Chloe handed me coffee. Try smiling. It's unsettling, but we'll adjust. I did. The room laughed. The 7th week belonged to the documentary. For the first time, Emma sat in front of our camera because she chose to, not because a commercial call sheet put tape on the floor. We were in a small community room in her hometown. No faux marble, no prop fruit, no artificial window. Sunlight came through old blinds and narrow bars. Emma faced a retired city planner and asked about a zoning meeting 5 years earlier. She did not perform sympathy. She listened. When he stopped speaking, she let the silence stay long enough for the truth to continue. From behind the monitor, I watched her do the work she had fought to protect. That was what pulled me toward her. Not the commercial. Not the viral clip. This, after the interview, she walked over while I checked the audio backup. How bad? The room tone? My first on-camera interview as a terrifying independent producer. You interrupted twice. Her face fell. Both times because he misstated a date. She waited. That was the correct reason. Her shoulders loosened. So I'm not fired? I'll discuss it with management. She looked around the empty room. You are management? Then the review could take weeks. She shook her head. You enjoy this too much? I'm developing range. We packed the room together. At the door, Emma stopped me. I need to ask you something that isn't about production. I set down the light stand. Okay. When this documentary is done, do you plan to disappear back into commercial work? The hallway smelled like old paint and coffee from the community kitchen. I have national campaigns waiting. That wasn't my question. No, it wasn't. I ran my thumb along the light stand handle. For most of my career, I liked being the person who could leave cleanly when a project ended. Emma waited. I don't want to leave this one cleanly. Her expression softened. Good. That was all. Then she picked up the smaller case and walked toward the van. But the entire drive back felt different. By the 8th week, the documentary had finished its first principal photography phase. The research wall no longer looked like a wall of questions. Half the threads ended in answers. Sarah came to the studio with the operating agreement for the company Emma and I had decided to form around the film. The desk lamp cast a warm circle over the pages. Equal managing ownership. Sarah said, shared creative control, shared financial responsibility, clear exit provisions, clear dispute process. Nobody gets trapped because everyone likes each other today. Liam, sitting on a road case, raised his coffee. Romance. Sarah looked at him. Governance. Chloe whispered. Same thing after 35. Emma laughed. Sarah pointed to the signature line. Emma! Emma signed first. Then she slid the document toward me. For years, I had worked alone because one signature felt safer than two. The pen clicked in my hand. I looked at Emma's name. Then at the research wall. Then at the battered industrial fan in the corner with its ridiculous label. I signed beside her. Sarah gathered the pages. Congratulations, I'll file tomorrow. Liam clapped once. Chloe clapped twice just to annoy him. Emma stayed by the work table. There's one more thing. Everyone looked at her. She looked at me. I had seen that expression once before under commercial lights over a ceramic prop mug when we were pretending to be two people who already knew how to choose each other. This time there was no script. Emma crossed the room. 8 weeks ago, I asked you about an unscripted scene. Chloe made a tiny sound of delight. Liam suddenly became fascinated by the ceiling. I was talking about the documentary then, Emma said. Mostly? Her smile deepened. Mostly. She reached for my hand. Not my sleeve. Not my forearm. My hand. I chose you as my business partner because you never confused helping me with owning the decision, she said. And I'd like to choose you outside the company too, if you want that. Nothing vague. Nothing hidden behind timing or camera angles. I closed my fingers around hers. I want that. Chloe exhaled dramatically. Thank God, I was running out of corkboard. Emma laughed. I stepped closer. Are we allowed one unscripted beat? You're the director. Conflict of interest. Then I'm calling it... She leaned in and kissed me. Brief. Warm. Certain. Then she stepped back before Liam could applaud. He applauded anyway. Sarah picked up her folder. For the record, that is not covered by the operating agreement. Thank you, Sarah. Billable clarification. Emma was still holding my hand. On the work table behind her sat the ceramic mug Chloe had rescued from the commercial set after wrap. Emma noticed me looking at it. She picked it up and handed it to me. Think we finally made the fake kitchen useful? I turned the mug in my hand. A tiny chip marked the glaze near the base. Real damage. Real history? I think the mug was always innocent. Emma smiled at me with the same warm, knowing look from that first take. Only this time, there was no camera waiting. No client watching. No one counting seconds. And no one called cut. The end. Closing thoughts. The green flag was never rescue. It was showing up with facts, keeping promises, and making room for the other person to choose. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.